I now return. If then in none of these, the doubt must of necessity lie in that word prelacy. And is that indeed the way of gospel government? Is that indeed which bears away the bell of Jure Divino? What is it then that hath destroyed all gospel order and government and worship in these kingdoms, as in other places of the Christian world, even down to the ground? Hath it not been prelacy? What is it that hath taken down a teaching ministry, and set up in the room a teaching ceremony? Is it not prelacy? What is it that hath silenced, suspended, imprisoned, deprived, banished so many godly, learned, able ministers of the gospel? Yea, and killed some of them with their unheard-of cruelties, and thrust into their place idle shepherds, dumb dogs that cannot bark unless it were at the flock of Christ, so they learned of their masters both to bark and bite too. Greedy dogs that could never have enough, that did tear out the loins and bowels of their own people for gain, heap living upon living, preferment upon preferment, swearing, drunken, unclean priests that taught nothing but rebellion in Israel, and caused people to abhor the sacrifice of the Lord. Arminian, popish, idolatrous, vile wretches, such as, had Job been alive, he would not have set with the dogs of his flock. Who, I say, brought in these? Did not prelacy? What hath hindered the reformation of religion all this while, in doctrine, government, and worship? Prelacy, a generation of men they were, that never had a vote for Jesus Christ. Yea, what hath poisoned and adulterated religion in all these branches, and hath let in popery and profaneness upon the kingdom like a flood, for the raising of their own pomp and greatness, but prelacy? In a word, prelacy it is that hath set its impure and imperious feet, one upon the church, the other upon the state, and hath made both serve as Pharaoh did the Israelites, with rigor. Surely their government hath been a yoke, which neither we nor our fathers were able to bear. Now, that which hath done this, and 1,000 times more violence and mischief to Christ and his people, than the tongue or pen of man is able to express, can that be the way of or to Zion? Can that be the government of Christ and his church? Objection. But there will be that will tell us, these have been the faults of the persons and not of the calling. Answer. Number 1. So cry some indeed, that ye like the men as well as their calling, and would justify the persons as well as the office. But that their wickedness is made so manifest that impudency itself cannot deny it. But is it indeed only the fault of the men, not of the calling? What meant then that saying of Queen Elizabeth, quote, that when she had made a bishop, she had spoiled a preacher, unquote? Was it only a jest? Number 2. And I wish we had not too just cause to add, the man too. Surely of the most of them we may say, as once Arnobius spake of the Gentiles, apud vos optimi sensentur quas comparatio pessimorum sic facit. Give me leave to vary it a little. He was a good bishop, that was not the worst man. But if there were some of a better complexion who yet apparent rare nantes in gurgite vasto were very rarely discovered in their episcopal see. Yet, number 3, look into their families, and they were for the most part the vilest in the diocese, a very nest of unclean birds. And, number 4, if you had looked into their courts and consistories, you would have thought you had been in Caiaphas's hall, where no other trade was driven but the crucifying of Christ in his members. Number 5, but fifthly, produce me one in this last succession of bishops, I hope the last, that had not his hands imbrued more or less in the blood of the faithful ministry. I say not ministers, but ministry. Produce a man amongst them all that durst be so conscientious as to lay down his bishopric, rather than he would lay violent hands upon a nonconforming minister, though he had failed but in one point of their compass of ceremonies, when their great master, the Pope of Canterbury, commanded it, although both for life, learning, and orthodox religion, their consciences did compel them to confess with Pilate, quote, we find no fault in this just person, unquote. I say, produce me such a bishop amongst the whole bunch in this latter age, and I will down on my knees ask them forgiveness. Oh, it was sure a mischievous poisoned soil, in which whatsoever plant was set did hardly ever thrive. Number 6. But yet further, was not the calling as bad as the men? You may as well say of the papacy in Rome, for surely the prelacy of England, which we swore to extirpate, was the very same fabric and model of ecclesiastical regimen, that is, in that anti-Christian world. Yea, such an evil it is, that some divines, venerable for their great learning, as well as for their eminent holiness, did conceive sole episcopal jurisdiction to be the very seat of the beast, upon which the fifth angel is now pouring out his vial, which is the reason that the men of that kingdom, quote, gnaw their tongues for pain and blaspheme the God of heaven, unquote. Objection. But it is therefore pleaded further against this clause, that although it may be prelacy with all its adjuncts and accidents of archbishops, chancellors, and commissaries, deans, etc., may have happily been the cause of these evils that have broken in upon us, and perhaps anti-Christian, yet should we therefore swear the extirpation of all prelacy or episcopacy whatsoever, since there may be found perhaps in Scripture an episcopacy or prelacy, which, circumcised from these exuberant members and officers, may be that government Christ hath bequeathed his church in the time of the gospel? Answer. Now we shall quickly close this business, for number 1, it is this prelacy, thus clothed, thus circumstanced, which we swear to extirpate. Read else the clause again. Prelacy, that is, church government by archbishops, bishops, their chancellors. Not every or all kinds of prelacy, not prelacy in the latitude of the notion thereof. Number 2, and secondly, let us join issue upon this point, and make no more words of it. If there be an episcopacy or prelacy found in the word as the way of gospel government, which Christ hath bequeathed the churches, and this be made appear, we are so far from swearing to extirpate such a prelacy, as that rather we are bound by virtue of this oath to entertain it as the mind and will of Jesus Christ. And this might suffice to warrant our covenanting to extirpate this prelacy, save that only. Yet some seem conscientiously to scruple this in the last place. Objection. That they see not what there is to warrant our swearing to extirpate that which is established by the law of the land, till the same law have abolished it. To which I answer, number 1, if the law of the land had abolished it, we need not swear the extirpation of it. Number 2, in this oath the parliaments of both kingdoms go before us, who, having the legislative power in their hands, have also potestatem vitoe et nicis, over laws as well as over persons, and may as well put to death the evil laws that do offend against the kingdom and the welfare of it, as the evil persons that do offend against the laws. Number 3, who therefore, thirdly, if they may lawfully annul and abolish laws that are found to sin against the law of God and the good of the kingdom, may as lawfully bind themselves by an oath to use the utmost of their endeavors to annul and abolish those laws, their oath being nothing else but a solemn engagement to endeavor to perform what they have warrantably resolved unto, and with the same equity may they bind the kingdom to assist them in so doing. Number 4, which is all that the people are engaged to by this covenant, not to outrun the Parliament in this extirpation, but to follow and serve them in it, by such concurrence as they may expect from each person in their stations and callings. For that clause, expressed in the 1st and 3rd article, is to be understood in all. Objection. If it be yet objected, that the members of Parliament have, at one time or other, sworn to preserve the laws, and therefore to swear to endeavor the extirpation of prelacy, which is established by law, is to contradict their own oath and run the hazard of perjury. It is easy for anyone to observe and answer. Number 1, that by the same argument, neither may king and parliament together change or annul a law, though found destructive to the good of the kingdoms, since his majesty, as well as his subjects, are bound up under the same oath at his coronation. Number 2, but again there is a vast difference between the members of parliament, simply considered in their private capacities, wherein they may be supposed to take an oath to maintain the laws of the land, and that public capacity of a parliament, whereby they are judges of those laws, and may, as I said before, endeavor the removal of such as are found pernicious to the church or state, and make such as will advantage the welfare of others. his Majesty being bound by his coronation oath to confirm these laws, which the Commons shall agree upon and present unto his Majesty. Objection. A. But it seems this objection lies half full and strong upon them that stand in their single private stations. I answer, that if there be any such oath, which yet I have never seen or heard of, unless the objection mean that clause in the late Parliament protestation, wherein we vow and protest to maintain and defend the lawful rights and liberties of the subject, surely neither in that nor this do we swear against a lawful endeavor to get any such laws or clause of the law repealed and abolished, which is found a wrong rather than a right, and the bondage rather than the liberty of the subject, as prelacy was. Had we indeed taken the bishop's oath, or the like, never to have given our consent to have the government by episcopacy changed or altered, we had brought ourselves into a woeful snare. But blessed be God, that snare is broken, and we are escaped, while in the meantime, without all doubt, the subject may as lawfully use all lawful means to get that law removed, which yet he hath promised or sworn to obey, while it remains, when it proves prejudicial to the public safety and welfare. As a poor captive that hath peradventure sworn obedience to the Turk, while he remains in his possession, may notwithstanding use all fair endeavors for an escape or ransom, or a pretense that is bound to obey his master, yet when he finds his service turned into a bondage, may use lawful means to obtain his freedom. But once more, to answer both objections, it is worth your inquiry whether the plea of a legal establishment of this prelacy sworn against in this covenant be not rather a tradition than any certain or confessed truth. Sure I am, we have it from the hands of persons of worth and honor, the ablest secretaries of law and antiquities in our kingdom, that there is no such law or statute to be found upon the file among our records. Which assertion, if it cannot find faith, will once more join issue with the patrons or followers of this prelacy, upon this point, that when they produce the law or statute which doth enact and establish prelacy, as it is here branched in the article, we will then give them a fuller answer, or yield the question.